No, wait, hear me out. Because what if, and I really want you listening to just sit with this for a second.
Yeah.
What if everything you have ever been taught about being you know, a quote unquote good person
Well,
in the modern workplace is actually the exact mechanism setting you up to fail?
oh, man.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a terrifying thought, but it's exactly right.
Right.
Because being a good person, and at least in the way modern corporate culture and like social media define it, usually just translates to being dangerously naive,
Dangerously naive.
like almost willfully naive about how the human primate actually operates.
And that deliberate naivete is exactly what we are tearing into today. So welcome to Deep Dive.
Glad to be here.
Well, we are jumping straight into the deep end today. No life jackets. Our sources today revolve entirely around the life, the underlying philosophies, and the deeply counterintuitive frameworks of Robert Greene.
Oh, yeah.
You likely know the name. He is the architect behind the 48 Laws of Power, the Art of Seduction, Mastery, and the Laws of Human Nature.
Yeah, massive, massive books. And for this analysis, we're pulling from a comprehensive, incredibly raw interview he gave.
It really was.
Just looking back over his entire body of work. And I have to tell you, synthesizing this material, the insights here are profound,
Yeah.
but they're also deeply unsettling because they systematically dismantle literally everything 2026 culture tells us we ought to be doing to succeed.
They really do. And our mission today is to decode the friction between his work and our world.
Right.
We have to ask, are his famously Machiavellian strategies just these toxic, cynical relics of a bygone cutthroat era?
Or, and this is the part that, keeps me up at night,
Yeah.
are they the exact indispensable survival tools you need in the hyper-competitive, algorithmically driven, deeply distracted landscape of 2026?
See, I would argue it's not about being toxic at all.
Okay, go on.
Like, that's a word we throw around to avoid looking at uncomfortable truths. It is about biology. It is about understanding the architecture of the primate brain. Ignoring these biological realities and power dynamics doesn't make you morally superior to the people playing the game.
It just makes you utterly, hopelessly powerless within it.
See, I struggle with that. I really do.
We do.
Because so much of this material on first read, it feels inherently manipulative to me. It feels like a manual for sociopaths.
I get that reaction. A lot of people have it.
But look, whether you are trying to navigate insane office politics where everyone is smiling to your face but, gunning for your budget,
Oh, yeah.
whether you are trying to build a resilient career in a world where everyone is just staring at a screen, or honestly, if you were just trying to go on a decent date this weekend and actually connect with a human being.
You need to hear this.
You really do. Okay, let's unpack this.
Let's start with the genesis of all this. Where does this worldview actually come from?
Right, the origin story.
Because he didn't just sit in a comfortable Ivy League tower and theorize about the dynamics of power from a distance.
Definitely not.
He lived a life of intense, almost crushing powerlessness first. Like the philosophy was forged in absolute desperation.
The context is wild, honestly. Before he ever published a single word, he worked over 80 different jobs.
80.
80! We are talking grueling manual labor in construction, working at a shady detective agency in Europe, translating French novels, and eventually ending up in Hollywood.
The belly of the beast.
Right, and he explicitly points out that Hollywood was this concentrated petri dish of, let's just say, highly manipulative, deeply insecure people wielding massive amounts of cultural power.
Exactly. And by the time he was like 37 or 38 years old, after observing all of this, he was completely broke.
Broke and miserable.
He openly admits to having suicidal thoughts floating around his brain during this period.
Yeah.
Like he felt like an absolutely irredeemable failure.
Which, if you think about it, is the ultimate manifestation of powerlessness.
Yeah, it really is.
You are nearing 40. Society expects you to have a trajectory, and you have nothing to show for it but a string of bizarre observations about how awful people can be to each other.
But then serendipity hits.
The turning point.
Yeah. He is in Italy for yet another one of these random dead-end writing gigs, and he crosses paths with a Dutch book packager.
Okay.
And he basically trauma dumps.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yeah. He unloads decades of accumulated observations, all the politicking, the subtle manipulations, the fragile egos, the way incompetent people consistently rose to the top while brilliant people were crushed at the bottom.
He had seen this exact same dynamic play out across 80 completely different industries.
Exactly. And in that conversation, he articulates a massive historical realization.
Which was?
We are sitting here in the modern era, And people might not dress in powdered wigs and velvet robes like Renaissance elites in the court of Louis XIV anymore,
Wow.
but the psychological software running in their brains is identical.
Wow.
They're playing the exact same power games.
So, the clothes changed, but the bloody cutthroat battles for status didn't. Machiavelli in a Patagonia vest, basically.
Precisely. Machiavelli in a Patagonia vest. And that realization, born out of pure frustration, became the foundation for the 48 Laws of Power.
Got it.
And the absolute core of that book, the central thesis that triggers modern readers the most, is this unrelenting insistence that we all wear masks.
Oh, the mask.
Yeah, that we must consciously curate our public personas.
Which, let me jump in here and stop you because I have to push back on this so hard.
Go for it.
If we look at the corporate and cultural landscape of 2026, the absolute highest virtue we celebrate is authenticity.
Sure, supposedly.
You open LinkedIn, you open TikTok, and you are bombarded with messaging telling you to, bring your whole self to work.
Right, right.
We are told that vulnerability is leadership. We are told that hiding behind a professional veneer is a symptom of imposter syndrome.
Yeah, I know the rhetoric.
Doesn't his advice to consciously wear a mask and keep up appearances just sound fundamentally fake and regressive to you?
It sounds regressive only because we have completely misunderstood what a mask actually does for our psychology.
What do you mean?
He argues, and the historical data backs him up on this, that our modern obsession with bringing your whole self to work is the exact mechanism that is making us all so burnt out, miserable, and chronically anxious.
How does that make any sense? If I am being true to my feelings, shouldn't I be less anxious?
Let's look at the mechanics of it. He references a brilliant sociological study, a book called The Fall of Public Man by Richard Sennett.
Okay.
It examines 18th century cafe and street culture in London and France. And back then, society recognized a strict, undeniable boundary between the public sphere and the private sphere.
So a clear division.
Exactly. When you left your house and entered a cafe or the public arena, you knew you were stepping onto a stage. You put on a metaphorical and sometimes literal mask.
Like you adopted a stylized way of speaking, you observed formal etiquette.
Right. It was almost like playing a highly structured game.
Yeah.
You played your public role, you tailored your appearances to the audience, and you did not expect the public to validate your deepest internal traumas.
That sounds exhausting, though.
But here's the crucial part for our mental health. When you went home and closed the door, you dropped the mask.
Ah, okay.
You breathed a massive sigh of relief and said, now I am safe. Now I can just be me with my family.
Ah, so there was a clear physical and psychological boundary. The mask actually protected your core self from the chaos of the public.
Exactly. The mask is armor. The problem in 2026 is that technology and corporate culture have completely obliterated those boundaries.
Oh, 100%. We don't have any distance from the social realm anymore. Your boss can slack you at 9 p.m. while you are in bed.
And we are told to treat our coworkers like family.
Ugh, yes. We're a family here.
Right. So when you are forced to sit through a terrible meeting and smile at a terrible idea,
Yeah.
you experience intense cognitive dissonance. You feel like a fraud.
Because you think, I'm not being authentic to my true feelings, therefore I am betraying myself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But he is saying, stop romanticizing authenticity in the workplace. You are a primate in a social hierarchy.
So playing a role isn't being fake, it's just the basic biological mechanism of existing in a large group without killing each other.
Bingo.
Okay, I see the logic. If you blabber the first emotional reaction that pops into your mind constantly, if you bring your whole messy self to a board meeting, you aren't being brave. You are just being reckless.
Totally reckless.
Yeah.
He literally says that having no self-control makes you look completely powerless, like a child throwing a tantrum.
Yeah, that makes sense. But let's move from the mask to one of the specific laws that feels incredibly dark, maybe even paranoid to me.
Okay, Amy.
Law 2. Never trust friends too much. Learn how to use enemies.
Ah, yes, a classic.
I mean, come on. Does he seriously want us to live a completely paranoid existence where we are constantly side-eyeing our best friends, waiting for betrayal?
We have to apply context here.
Mm-hmm.
He is not talking about your personal life, your spouse, or your childhood best friend.
Okay, good.
He's talking about the realm of work, execution, and getting tangible results.
Mm.
In the business world, when you need to hire someone or partner on a high-stakes project, your primitive brain naturally gravitates toward your friend.
Well, yeah, because you trust them, you have shared history, and most importantly, it feels emotionally comfortable.
Exactly. But he says surrendering to that comfort is a terrible, fatal mistake.
But wait, I don't buy that entirely. In 2026, the most successful agile startups and creative teams are built on the concept of psychological safety and extreme trust.
Right. Psychological safety is the big buzzword.
Yeah. You need to move fast. And you can only move fast if you implicitly trust the person next to you. You can't have trust with a former enemy. If I hire an enemy, aren't I just inviting a Trojan horse into my own business?
That assumes your friend will always act rationally and your enemy will always act maliciously. He asks you to look at the underlying cognitive biases. Friendship involves messy, complicated, deeply rooted emotions.
Okay, true.
If you hire a friend and they start underperforming or missing deadlines, you cannot have a clean, objective, surgical conversation about their performance.
Oh, because the feedback is immediately tainted by personal history.
Exactly. How could you say that to me after all we've been through? The boundary between the professional mask and the personal relationship collapses, and those emotions cloud your judgment.
And you end up tolerating incompetence to save the friendship, or you destroy the friendship trying to enforce competence.
Right.
Okay, the friction there is real. I've actually seen startups implode because the founders were college roommates who couldn't fire each other.
It happens all the time.
Yeah.
Now, let's analyze the mechanics of the enemy. Suppose you have someone in your industry you never got along with.
Okay.
Someone who is maybe a former rival, someone who has publicly disagreed with you but who's undeniably highly competent.
Yeah.
If you approach them, bridge the gap and say, look, we have our differences, but let's bury the hatchet. I know you're brilliant at what you do, and I want to hire you or partner with you.
Oh, wow. The psychological turnaround there is massive. It's totally disarming.
It completely short-circuits their expectations. It creates intense, highly motivated loyalty.
Because they never expected you to recognize their value, and now that you have, they feel a psychological debt.
Exactly. They are highly motivated to prove to you and to the world that your unexpected change of mind was justified.
That makes a ton of sense.
Plus, because there is no underlying friendship to protect, the relationship is entirely professional. You are both focused on the work, not on each other's feelings.
You are operating strategically, utilizing human nature rather than being dragged down by it.
Exactly.
It's counterintuitive, but the logic holds up. It removes the emotional quicksand. But let me throw another law at you that clashes violently with our current era.
Bring it on.
Law 3. Conceal your intentions.
Oh, this is a big one.
In 2026, the entire digital ecosystem creators, tech founders, thought leaders is built on the ethos of building in public.
Yep. Build in public.
We are told to share our rough drafts,
Yeah.
tweet our daily progress, galvanize a community by being completely radically transparent about our goals.
Right.
But his advice is, shut up and keep it hidden.
Yeah.
Isn't secrecy dead in the internet age?
Secrecy isn't dead. It is more vital than ever, precisely because of the internet age.
Really?
He is absolutely right to issue that warning, especially in the 2026 landscape where digital espionage, copycat products, and algorithmic scraping are rampant.
Oh, that's true. The competition is microscopic and relentless.
Right. Competitors are constantly watching your feeds, dissecting your roadmaps. If you reveal every step of your master plan under the guise of building in public.
I see it. It's like sitting down at a high-stakes poker table and playing with your cards facing outward.
Yes.
You might feel a warm glow inside thinking you are being an honest, transparent, community-driven person, but in reality, you are literally just giving away your leverage.
You are letting the table calculate your exact odds.
That is wild.
That is the perfect analogy. He suggests the deployment of strategic deception.
What does that look like in practice?
Well, if you are in a highly competitive, tricky situation,
Yeah,
you don't just stay silent. Silence makes people suspicious.
right.
You throw out a red herring. You consciously construct a narrative that makes your rivals think you are heavily investing in Plan A.
Drawing their attention and resources in that direction.
Exactly.
Yeah.
While you are quietly and ruthlessly executing Plan B in the shadows, it keeps your rivals constantly on their heels, reacting to ghosts.
Well, wait, what about your own team? You have to tell them, right?
Oh, to be clear, within your tightly sealed internal team, yes, share the vision to inspire them.
Okay, good.
But out in the public arena,
Well.
all is fair in love, war, and business. This raises an important question.
Which is the existential question that underpins this entire philosophy. Do we all actually have this dark, manipulative, ruthless side? Because to operate the way he suggests, you have to admit that you are capable of it. And as a society, we desperately like to think we don't operate this way.
We really do.
We like to categorize the world into toxic narcissists and the good guys, and we always cast ourselves as the good guys.
We do. The ego demands that we see ourselves as the hero of the story. And this is the deeply uncomfortable foundational truth about human nature that he forces us to look at without blinking.
Which is,
We are not descended from divine angels of light. We are descended from primates.
right.
Our neurobiology was forged over hundreds of thousands of years in brutal, resource-scarce environments. We are hardwired with the exact same raw, primitive drives as our ancestors,
Territorial aggression, deep-seated envy, tribalism.
and an absolute biological obsession with our status in the hierarchy.
And the illusion that we are somehow evolved past that, or that our modern morality makes us superior to those drives, is just ego.
It's a fairy tale we tell ourselves so we can sleep at night.
Which brings me to what I think is the absolute hidden gem in the source material we're looking at.
Oh, I know where you're going.
These are the insights buried deep in the middle chapters that most casual readers entirely overlook. And it revolves around his analysis of historical saints.
Yes.
Figures that we literally put on pedestals in our textbooks as the ultimate, pure, untainted, good people.
Yes, this is where his analytical lens is sharpest. He looks closely at figures like Mahatma Gandhi and Martin Luther King Jr.
Right. And just to frame this conversation so we are crystal clear for you listening,
Mm-hmm.
he is not passing judgment on the inherent morality or the righteousness of their historical causes.
Absolutely not.
He is stripping away the mythology to look purely at the chessboard. Regardless of how righteous their movements were, he argues that the mechanics they used to win were brilliant, calculated, and fundamentally Machiavellian.
Completely. Let's look at Gandhi. His spiritual belief in nonviolence, or ahimsa, was absolutely sincere. But he didn't just sit in an ashram meditating, hoping that the British Empire would suddenly develop a conscience and leave India.
No, he was a master tactician.
He orchestrated massive public relations campaigns, like the famous Salt March, with a precise clinical understanding of optics.
Wow.
He deliberately provoked situations where he knew his followers would face violence. He engineered scenarios where liberal-minded British citizens sitting safely in London reading their morning newspapers would see horrifying, undeniable photographs of peaceful Indians being brutally beaten by English officers.
So he weaponized the media and the camera to emotionally manipulate public opinion and apply political leverage.
Exactly. It wasn't passive resistance. It was a highly aggressive, asymmetrical psychological warfare.
And MLK did the exact same thing during the Civil Rights Movement.
He really did.
Our sources dissect the Birmingham campaign. The movement had hit a massive stalemate. King's senior advisors were terrified of the optics of putting young people at risk. They wanted to rely on the courts and the adults. But King made the incredibly calculated, ruthless decision to put teenagers like 13 and 14-year-old kids on the front lines of the protests.
Yeah.
He knew exactly what the notoriously brutal police commissioner, Bull Connor, would do. He put those kids in the street knowing they would be attacked by police dogs and blasted with high-pressure fire hoses.
Because King understood that the fat, comfortable American public, sitting in their living rooms watching the nightly television news, wouldn't be moved by legal arguments.
They needed to be viscera punched.
Exactly. They needed to be shocked by the visual horror of it. He understood the optics of power perfectly, and he was willing to sacrifice the safety of children to achieve this strategic checkmate.
It entirely shatters this comfortable, sanitized illusion we have that goodness means being passive, gentle, and universally harmless.
To achieve massive change, even righteous change, requires an understanding of dark power dynamics.
Everyone has a dark side.
Everyone has a shadow. Carl Jung talked about this extensively.
Yeah.
And the moment you claim absolute moral purity, the moment you say, I am incapable of manipulation, you are actually just blinding yourself to your own nature.
Which makes you dangerous because your dark side will operate unconsciously.
What's fascinating here is how he intricately ties this denial of our dark side to the modern epidemic of narcissism.
Oh, this section was huge. Because right now in our cultural lexicon, narcissist is the ultimate nuclear insult.
Oh, absolutely.
We throw it around constantly to dismiss people. My ex is a narcissist, my boss is a narcissist, that politician is a narcissist. It's a label we stick on other people to explain bad behavior.
Right.
But the text flips the mirror and says, no, we are all narcissists, every single one of us, on a fundamental biological level.
Because it stems directly from early childhood development. It is a necessary stage of human survival.
How so?
When you are an infant, you are the absolute center of the universe. Your parents anticipate your every need. But when you hit 3 or 4 years old, the psychological separation begins.
Right.
Your parents have to start stepping back. They give you less attention, they say no, they expect you to self-soothe. For a toddler, this realization that they are alone in a vast, indifferent world is utterly terrifying.
It's an existential crisis.
So to survive this terror, the child's psyche has to develop a mechanism to generate its own love. They create an ego ideal. They have to build the internal shreds of self-esteem so they don't psychologically crumble when they're left alone in a room.
So the initial impulse of self-love isn't inherently evil or pathological. It's a defense mechanism.
It's pure survival.
Yeah.
The psychological pathology only occurs when people get older, they enter adulthood, and they never successfully transition out of that infantile stage. If a person fails to develop secure, resilient internal self-esteem, they become what we label toxic narcissists.
Right.
They have a gaping black hole in their psyche, so they constantly throw dramatic rages, they manipulate, they demand to be the absolute center of attention purely to extract the external validation and love they so desperately need to avoid collapsing.
But his crucial point is that the goal of a healthy adult isn't to eradicate your self-love. You couldn't perform that surgery even if you tried. It's baked into your ego.
Exactly.
The goal is to acknowledge it, own it, and consciously transition that inward-facing obsession into healthy, outward-facing empathy. To use your secure sense of self to focus on understanding others.
Precisely.
Hearing you lay out the mechanics of that makes me wonder, is this deeply rooted denial of our own narcissism exactly why internet cancel culture is so incredibly vicious and aggressive today?
Tell me more about that.
Like, we are all walking around so desperate to deny our own dark side, so terrified of our own capacity for envy, manipulation, and cruelty, that when someone online makes a mistake, we instantly project all our hidden subconscious flaws onto them.
Yes.
We join the digital mob and just destroy the target. It's the ultimate psychological projection. Like, look at how monstrous they are. My outrage proves how virtuous and clean I am.
That is a brilliant, entirely accurate observation. It is textbook Jungian projection amplified by algorithms.
Wow.
When you refuse to acknowledge your own shadow, it doesn't disappear. It controls you from the dark. You become the monster while convincing yourself you are the hero.
So what's the fix?
He says, stop looking away. Acknowledge your aggressive instincts. Acknowledge your capacity for grandiosity and selfishness.
Right.
Once you actually see the machinery of your own dark side, it loses its unconscious grip on you. And more importantly, you can actually harness that dark, aggressive energy and channel it into something creative, productive, and bold.
Okay, so we've deconstructed the corporate workplace, we've dismantled the mythology of the saints, and we've stared into our own internal darkness.
We've covered a lot of ground.
We really have. Now, I want to shift gears entirely and pivot to the third massive pillar of his work, which is undeniably his most controversial and the one that gets the most visceral reaction.
Seduction.
Yes, seduction, which he does not define merely as a manual for picking people up in bars, but as the ultimate highest form of power.
Exactly. Because true power isn't forcing someone to do something against their will. True power is the art of making people willingly, eagerly lower their resistance to you and adopt your desires as their own.
And we desperately need to ground this in the reality of 2026. Because beyond the boardroom, we are living through an absolute documented crisis of intimacy right now.
We really are.
Especially for young men, but truly across the entire demographic spectrum. People are profoundly struggling to date.
Yeah.
They are relying entirely on algorithmic dating apps to mediate their romantic lives. They are consumed by the hyperreality of internet porn, and the fundamental biological mating ritual feels completely irreparably broken.
And he diagnoses exactly why the machinery is breaking down. He points out that the internet and these app interfaces literally train your neurobiology to expect a quick, frictionless, mechanical hack.
Swipe right, get a hit of dopamine, send a text, get a result.
It reduces human connection to a vending machine.
Yeah.
But biological seduction is not a hack. It is a slow, intricate language of gestures, pacing, and psychological tension.
It requires immense patience.
And if you spend 80% of your waking hours staring at a two-dimensional screen expecting instant gratification, you literally atrophy the neural pathways required to read the quiet, complex, three-dimensional language of another human being.
You forget how to play the game.
You completely forget.
So how do you actually relearn the game? How do you become a great seducer in a culture that has fundamentally forgotten how to pay attention?
Well, he argues the foundational trait, the absolute prerequisite, is becoming what he calls outer-directed.
Outer-directed. Okay, unpack that.
To understand outer-directedness, you have to understand its opposite. Think about what usually happens on a modern first date.
Okay.
You're sitting there across from someone.
Yeah.
nursing a drink, and your internal monologue is absolutely screaming at you. Do I look good in this lighting? Did I just say something incredibly stupid? Can they tell I'm nervous? Does she like me? Am I talking too much about my job?
Oh, man. You are physically present, but psychologically, you are totally trapped inside the claustrophobic box of your own head.
Which is the most anti-seductive energy imaginable. You are radiating anxiety.
So what's the alternative?
A master seducer learns to forcefully turn that internal monologue off. You step out of your ego and you enter their spirit like a sponge.
Like a sponge.
You listen so deeply and observe so acutely that you start to perceive the hidden gaps in their life. You reflect back to them the pieces of themselves they feel are missing or unappreciated.
Wow.
You make them feel like you are entirely hypnotically absorbed in who they are as an individual. Because honestly, ask yourself, in the hyper-distracted modern world, how often does someone actually put down their phone, look you in the eye, and give you their undivided, completely absorbed, non-judgmental attention?
Almost never. We are all starved for it.
We are.
So giving someone that caliber of attention isn't just nice, it is literally intoxicating. It bypasses their rational defenses.
Exact.
But then he provides the flip side, which is equally important to understand, the traits of the anti-seducer. And I was reading this section and just wincing because it is so painfully, hilariously true.
Well, it really is.
What are the specific behaviors that instantly repel people on a biological level?
He highlights two massive offenders, preaching and cheapness.
Let's start with preaching.
Preaching, which is essentially asserting your moral or intellectual superiority over the other person, is a massive, immediate turnoff. Seduction is supposed to be rooted in pleasure, playfulness, and a balanced back-and-forth dynamic.
Right.
If you sit there moralizing, lecturing, or trying to fix them, you kill the tension instantly. You become a parent, not a lover.
And the second trait, cheapness.
That one is deeply evolutionary.
Oh my God, the discount code story. We have to talk about this.
I hope you'd bring that up.
He tells this anecdote about a guy taking a woman out on a highly anticipated first date, and he specifically chooses the restaurant not for the ambiance, not for the food, but because he had a valid 2-for-1 discount code for it.
Yep.
And when the check comes, he proudly whips out the coupon. Now look, I get it. We are in a tough economy. Inflation is real. The cost of living is absurd. A lot of people might defend the guy and say, hey, he's just being financially savvy. Why waste money?
They might defend it logically,
Yeah.
but biologically, it is a disaster.
Why?
He says no. It has nothing to do with the actual dollar amount. It signals a deep structural tightness of spirit.
Tightness of spirit. I like that phrasing.
Seduction, at its core, requires a demonstration of generosity. Generosity of your time, of your emotional energy, and yes, sometimes a tangible display of resources. It is an evolutionary signal.
Right.
If you are so rigid, so inherently tight, that you cannot let go of a $10 coupon to make a first date feel seamless and special, you are subconsciously signaling to that person that they're simply not worth the sacrifice of your resources.
Ouch.
And human intuition extrapolates that data. If you won't put effort and resources in on day one, when you're supposed to be on your best behavior, what kind of suffocating, rigid partner are you going to be 3 years down the line?
You are showing your cards, and the hand is terrible. And this reliance on intuition all ties back into the power of body language, right? Because he constantly reiterates that words are cheap. Words can easily lie.
Very easily.
Anyone can say, I love your idea, or I'm having a great time. But the autonomic nervous system, the body, cannot lie.
Exactly. We have to remember that our species evolved for hundreds of thousands of years in close-knit tribes long before complex spoken language ever existed.
Right.
Our very survival depended entirely on our ability to accurately read subtle physical cues, to know instantly if the person approaching us was a mate, a friend, or a threat. And he tells this incredible, haunting historical story about Milton Erickson to prove just how much data the body leaks.
Erickson, the legendary founder of modern hypnotherapy.
Yes, the backstory is profound. When Erickson was just 19 years old, growing up on a farm in the 1920s, he contracted a severe case of polio. The virus ravaged his nervous system.
That's awful.
He woke up one day and was almost entirely paralyzed. The only muscles in his entire body that he had voluntary control over were his eyeballs. He was locked inside his own flesh.
Can you even imagine the sheer terror and the mind-numbing boredom of that? Being an active teenager one day and a statue the next.
It is a terrifying level of sensory deprivation. But Erickson's mind was still incredibly active. To avoid literally dying of boredom while lying in the main room of the farmhouse, he would hyper-focus on the people who came to visit him, or the family members talking around him.
Okay.
Since he couldn't speak, move, or participate, he poured 100% of his cognitive energy into studying their microexpressions. He watched the dissonance between what they said and what their bodies did.
Wow.
He mastered reading human psychology purely by watching the autonomic responses they couldn't control, how their breathing patterns shifted, how the tiny muscles around their mouths twitched, how they subconsciously shifted their weight when a certain topic was brought up.
And the text extracts specific, actionable things we can look for today based on this kind of hyper-observation. Take the concept of the smile.
Oh, this is a good one.
He breaks down the fake smile versus the real, genuine Duchenne smile. A fake smile, which we see all day in corporate offices, is tight. It only engages the muscles around the mouth. It's an act of will.
Right.
But a real smile, it is an involuntary reflex that engages the entire face. The eyes light up, you get those little the crow's feet around the edges of the eyes. If the eyes aren't crinkling, the person is masking.
Yep.
Or consider the speed of talking. If someone is talking incredibly fast, rushing to fill the silence, they are radiating nervous insecurity.
He also identifies broader physical dynamics,
Mm.
like pecking.
Yes, packing is such a great visual.
It really is.
If you go to a bar and watch the interactions, you can instantly spot the person with low confidence. They lean in aggressively, they invade the other person's physical space, their head juts forward. They literally peck at the person like a bird, desperate for crumbs of attention.
Exactly.
But someone with high grounded confidence does the exact opposite. They lean back. They establish their own center of gravity, and they force the other person to cross the space and come to them.
But detailing all these physical maneuvers brings up a really crucial distinction that confuses a lot of readers, and it's vital we clarify it. He argues vehemently that insecurity is deeply anti-seductive, but vulnerability is highly seductive.
Wait, I need you to reconcile that for me.
Okay.
Because if we are supposed to be projecting power, leaning back, and controlling our microexpressions, why on earth would vulnerability be considered seductive? Isn't vulnerability, my definition, showing weakness? Isn't that exposing the chink in your armor?
It feels like a paradox until you examine the etymology of the word itself. The word vulnerability comes from the Latin word vulnus, which translates literally to wound.
Oh, interesting.
True vulnerability means you possess the internal fortitude to be open. You are so fundamentally secure in your own worth that you can willingly show a wound, you can admit a flaw, and you can allow someone else to emotionally affect you without fearing it will destroy you.
Ah, I see.
Think about a puppy rolling over on its back, exposing its soft stomach. A puppy is incredibly vulnerable. And what is the human reaction to that? It draws you in instantly. It makes you want to protect it, to connect with it. It lowers all your defenses.
But insecurity operates completely differently.
Entirely differently. Insecurity is not openness. Insecurity is total, suffocating self-absorption.
Right.
When you're insecure, you are so deeply worried about your own status and how you are being perceived that you project this desperate, erratic, awkward energy. It makes the other person feel incredibly awkward because they realize you aren't actually seeing them. You're just using them as a mirror to check your own reflection.
That makes total sense.
And here's the brutal truth he lays out. You cannot fake confidence to cover up insecurity. It does not work.
People can smell it.
Fake confidence reads as loud, aggressive bravado, and human intuition smells the desperation underneath it instantly. Real, magnetic confidence only comes from one place: having acquired actual, tangible skills and having accomplished real things in the material world.
Which is the absolute perfect logical pivot to our next major topic.
Mastery.
Yes. Because after he wrote these massive bestsellers about power, manipulation, and seduction, he looked at his audience and realized they were taking the completely wrong lesson away from his work.
Well, it really worked.
They thought life was just a theatrical game of manipulating optics and wearing masks. So he spent years researching and wrote Mastery, specifically to drop the hammer and say, no, the mask eventually cracks. At some point, the talking stops, and you actually have to build undeniably real physical skills.
Exactly. The manipulation of perception is useless if there is no substance beneath it. And to teach people how to acquire that substance, he directly attacks one of the most ubiquitous, universally accepted cliches of our modern educational system.
Find your passion.
Yes, he absolutely despises the word passion.
Why? Everyone from high school guidance counselors to Silicon Valley billionaires says the secret to life is to follow your passion. It's the ultimate modern mantra.
Because the word passion is fundamentally misleading. It implies that the process of becoming great at something is going to be driven by fleeting emotional highs.
Right, that it should be fun.
It implies that it is going to feel good. But his research into historical geniuses proves that achieving mastery, reaching that mythical 10,000-hour threshold where your brain physically builds and coats new neural pathways with myelin, requires enduring grueling, crushing tedium.
Right.
It requires pushing through plateaus of extreme, agonizing boredom. Passion burns out when the work gets boring. Mastery relies on mechanical discipline.
He illustrates this beautifully by talking about an evening he spent having dinner with Stevie Wonder.
Oh, this story's amazing.
He describes watching Stevie Wonder, completely blind, sit at a piano and improvise. And to the observer, it looks like pure, unadulterated magic. It looks like the musical notes are just flowing out of him through divine intervention. It looks like pure passion. But with his analytical mind, he realizes what we are not seeing. We are not seeing the tens of thousands of hours of incredibly boring, repetitive, frustrating scales he was forced to play as a child prodigy.
Exactly. The magic only happens, the improvisation is only possible because over decades of tedious repetition, the brain and the hands have literally biologically wired themselves together.
The conscious mind no longer has to think about where the keys are.
As he puts it, you have to go with the grain of the brain. Human beings are physically wired to learn by doing, by repetition, and by mimicry.
Right.
Which is why his practical advice for young people entering the earliest phase of their career, what he calls the apprenticeship phase, is so vital and so counter to what everyone does today.
Let's break down the mechanics of the apprenticeship with the specific scenario he uses.
Yeah.
Imagine you are a 23-year-old kid, fresh out of school, and you decide you want to build a career in the floral industry. You have two competing job offers on the table.
Okay, lay him out.
Job A is a slick corporate gig at a massive international department store. It pays triple the salary, it has great benefits, but you are just a tiny cog in a massive logistical machine. Job B is an offer from a tiny, cramped, local florist shop, working shoulder to shoulder with the grizzled entrepreneur who started it, but it pays absolute peanuts.
Right.
Which one do you take?
If you care about ultimate power and mastery, you take the low-paying job.
Yeah.
Every single time.
But people have rent, people have student loans. Everyone in 2026 is chasing the immediate corporate paycheck.
And that is the fatal strategic mistake of an entire generation. If you take the massive corporate job for the money, your skill development halts.
Because you get lost in the machine.
You get lost in the bureaucracy. You end up spending 80% of your cognitive energy learning how to navigate HR policies, write passive-aggressive emails, and play office politics just to survive.
So true.
But if you take the low-paying job sitting right next to the entrepreneur, you activate the brain's mirror neuron system. You learn by osmosis. You see how they handle a demanding customer. You see how they negotiate with suppliers. You see how they sweep the floors. You learn the entire architecture of the business from the ground up through hands-on mimicry, which is the only way the human brain actually acquires deep mastery.
And he places massive emphasis on this concept of deep observation during this apprenticeship phase. When you start a new job, your ego-driven instinct is almost always, I need to prove my worth immediately. I need to speak up in the first meeting to show the boss how smart I am.
Oh, everyone does that.
He says, shut up. Literally, close your mouth. Be a sponge. Become entirely outer-directed. Spend the first 6 months doing nothing but observing the hidden social codes of the environment.
Yes.
Ask yourself, who actually has real power here? And who just has a fancy title? Who is faking their competence? What specific behaviors actually get rewarded by leadership, regardless of what the employee handbook says?
You must profoundly absorb the reality of the environment before you take a single definitive action.
Here's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
Because if we take a massive step back and we look at the totality of everything we have talked about so far, the necessity of wearing masks, the strategy of using enemies, deploying strategic deception, the nuanced physical game of seduction, and the willingness to endure 10,000 hours of agonizing boredom.
Right. The whole package.
Right. If you step back and look at the whole board, you have to ask the ultimate question. What is the point of all this?
Okay.
If life is just this ruthless, exhausting, Machiavellian game of chess where you are constantly manipulating variables and reading microexpressions, isn't that just a miserable way to live? Is the goal just to become a supervillain who controls everyone?
No. And this is the breathtaking breakthrough realization that completely fundamentally redefines his entire body of work. It all comes back to how he actually defines the word power.
Okay.
Because True power is not about controlling other people.
Wait, it's not. The guy who wrote the 48 Laws of Power doesn't want to control people.
No. To explain why, he leans on a profound quote from Malcolm X. Absolute powerlessness corrupts more than absolute power. Think about the psychology of the toxic people you've encountered. The desire to micromanage your employees, the urge to aggressively manipulate your partner, the need to play toxic office politics. That doesn't stem from a position of strength.
Where does it come from?
That aggressive need to control the external world actually stems from a deep, terrifying feeling of internal helplessness.
Oh my God. That completely inverts the stereotype. We assume the screaming, micromanaging, toxic boss is drunk on power, but you're saying they're acting that way because they are fundamentally terrified of their own irrelevance and lack of control.
Exactly. They lash out because they have no foundation. So what does this all mean?
It means the synthesis of all these ruthless laws is actually entirely inward. Wearing a public mask isn't about maliciously deceiving your boss for the fun of it. It's about protecting your own emotional core so your psyche isn't destroyed by their toxic ego.
Right.
Seducing an audience isn't about feeding your own grandiosity and narcissism. It's about getting out of your own head so you can genuinely connect with someone else. And enduring the brutal boredom of mastery isn't just about getting rich or famous. It is about building such an undeniable physical competence that you have absolute, unshakable control over yourself. True power, the ultimate goal of all these strategies, is the total, final eradication of your own internal helplessness.
That is profound. It flips the entire script of his philosophy.
Yeah.
The enemy you are fighting isn't the guy in the cubicle next to you.
Right.
The enemy is your own impulsivity, your own emotional reactivity, and your own lack of self-control.
But then, just as he reaches the pinnacle of this philosophical understanding, the universe decides to test him on this exact thesis in the most extreme, literal, physical way imaginable.
August 2018.
Right. He has just finished writing The Laws of Human Nature. It was a brutal 5-year writing process, and he is physically, emotionally, and mentally drained. And through a freakish, almost unbelievable cascade of random events, he forgets to pack his blood pressure medication on a trip, he gets stung by a wasp in the neck, he goes to the hospital and is given a heavy dose of prednisone, which artificially spikes his blood pressure.
A perfect storm.
And then a few days later, while he is driving his car, a blood clot hits his brain. He suffers a massive catastrophic stroke.
The cosmic irony of the situation is almost too heavy to bear.
Yeah.
The absolute master of human power, the man who spent a lifetime writing the definitive manuals on how to gain and maintain control over every variable in your life, is suddenly rendered entirely, permanently, physically powerless.
It's hard to even process.
The entire left side of his body is paralyzed. The man who advocated for physical action can no longer swim, he can no longer ride his mountain bike, he can barely tie his own shoes, and most devastatingly for a writer, he can no longer type.
How does a human being even begin to survive that psychologically? Because he is incredibly brutally honest in this interview. He didn't just instantly zen his way through the trauma like a stoic monk.
No, not at all.
He admits to falling into extreme delusion at first. He told himself, oh, I'll work hard at physical therapy and I'll be swimming again in 6 months.
Right.
And then a year later, when the medical reality finally sets in that the neural pathways are dead and this disability is permanent, he crashes into a severe, crushing, suicidal depression.
But this is exactly where the internal philosophy of power he spent decades developing actually saves his life.
Yeah.
He is faced with the ultimate test. How do you reclaim psychological control in a situation where you have absolute zero physical control?
What does he do?
And he manages to pull himself out of the abyss through a few distinct, profound strategies. First, he experiences a massive wave of radical empathy.
Empathy.
He realizes that for the first time in his life, he understands on a visceral, physical, non-intellectual level what it actually feels like to be completely helpless. He feels a sudden, deep spiritual connection to the permanently disabled, to the extremely poor, who have no control over where their next meal is coming from.
It shattered whatever residual intellectual arrogance he might have had left.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It grounded him in the fragility of the human condition. Second, he leans heavily into Zen meditation. Specifically, he meditates on this ancient concept of Tathagata.
Which translates to things as they are.
Yes, it is the ultimate practice of non-resistance. He had to realize that the world isn't inherently evil because this happened to him. The universe isn't unjust. It just is.
A wasp stings, a clot forms, a vessel bursts.
Exactly. You have to stop aggressively discriminating against your own reality, stop demanding that the universe rewind time, and simply accept the karmic chain of events.
And the third strategy he employs is maybe the most tactical maneuver ever. He takes the primitive emotion of envy and he completely flips it upside down.
Oh, the jogger story.
He talks about sitting in his chair by the front window, struggling for 10 minutes just to manipulate his own arm and watching a healthy jogger run by on the street with their dog.
Yeah.
Normal, primitive human nature would dictate exactly how to feel. I am so bitterly jealous of that jogger. I hate them for having the mobility that was stolen from me.
But he uses his mind to flip the dynamic. He looks at the jogger and says, I actually feel sorry for you.
Because the jogger is completely blissfully oblivious to how fragile their reality is.
Right.
The jogger takes every single step, every breath, and their entire mobility completely for granted. He now possesses a profound, earned awareness of the preciousness of existence that the jogger doesn't have. He weaponizes philosophical perspective to save his own mental health.
And ultimately, this stroke took half his body, but it did not take his mind. His intellect remained entirely intact. Writing remains his salvation. It takes him 10 times longer to produce a page, but he continues to work. However, he is very careful to end the interview by stating clearly that he isn't some perfect, enlightened guru floating above the fray.
He still gets frustrated.
Incredibly frustrated. He likens his daily physical struggles to having Tourette syndrome. His body simply won't obey his mind. He is still a flawed, emotional work in progress. If we connect this to the bigger picture,
We see that the mastery of power, the battle against our own helplessness, is literally never finished.
it isn't. You don't just read the laws, check a box on a checklist, and become an invincible god. Life is always going to come for you. Fate is going to step in.
Right.
And when the universe inevitably strips away your physical capabilities, or the market crashes and takes your job, or public opinion shifts and takes your status, true strength, ultimate power, is found in radical acceptance and immense, overwhelming gratitude for the simple fact that you can still open your eyes, see the sky, and hear the birds sing.
It is an absolute unbelievable epic journey to track. To go from this cynical, suicidal, broke 37-year-old observing the petty manipulators of Hollywood to becoming a globally recognized strategist decoding the dark side of historical saints, all the way to becoming a paralyzed stroke survivor who has to find absolute peace in the simple biological act of breathing.
It forces every single one of us to look in the mirror and reevaluate what we are actually chasing.
It really does. So to synthesize this massive journey we've unpacked today, we are primates. We are wired with a dark side. We are living in a hyper-competitive, algorithmic, deeply distracted 2026 world that wants to sell us shortcuts.
Yep.
If you want to survive and thrive, you have to drop the childish illusion of your own moral superiority. You have to embrace the brutal, unglamorous tedium of mastery to build real, undeniable skills.
Exactly.
You have to protect your inner emotional core by understanding the masks people wear. And you deploy all of these strategies not to conquer the people around you, but to conquer your own internal terror and helplessness.
And there is one final lingering thought from him that I think perfectly encapsulates the challenge he is laying down for everyone listening right now.
What's that?
He describes a vivid dream he had recently, where he traveled forward in time to the year 2072. And his deepest hope, his real optimism for the future, is that the current generation, Gen Z, and those coming after will eventually hit a breaking point.
A breaking point.
That they will launch a massive cultural rebellion against this completely virtual, algorithm-soved, hyper-curated world.
Yeah.
That they will smash the screens and demand something undeniably real.
So here's the question we want to leave you with today. Look around at your life and think about the virtual walls you have built around yourself, the screens, the carefully curated digital personas, the cheap dopamine hacks, the reliance on apps to mediate your human connections.
Right.
If the internet permanently turned off tomorrow, if you were suddenly stripped of your digital masks, your dating apps, and all your technological shortcuts, what actual tangible skills do your hands possess? And how well can you read the quiet, unwritten language of the human being sitting right in front of you?
If you don't know the answer to that question, it is time to stop swiping and start observing.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Step away from the screen, drop the moral superiority, and go observe the real world. And please, whatever you do, just don't use a discount code on your next first date.